It's time to get started. We had a little technical difficulty getting a link in here, but I've got it now. Was I talking over somebody? I didn't hear it. My bad. Did I hear somebody else talking? All right. Well, I hear myself talking. I see the video. Let's see if we can see anybody else. I'm looking in the chat here. And okay, I'm getting comments, but let me know if you can hear me. Obviously, you can see me, but can you hear? I just want to make sure we have audio. Hey, Trip, thanks, bud. I can, great. Well, then let me see if I can see anybody. I see my camera and I see Clarissa, who's got a picture of Rob there. But I love it when I can see the cameras if they're on. If they're not, just fire away in the text chat and we will be ready to go here. Hey, Barry. Let's see. I do not think you heard me tell you that. Your sound is fine. Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know that I heard anybody, and I don't know that that's activated right now. Maybe it is, but Tom, how you doing? Good to see you as well. Let's see. There's Brenda and Evelyn and Robert. Okay, Helen. There's lots of everybody. All right, so good morning. It is morning here, and I guess it's 12:07 on the East Coast. So good afternoon to those that are all the way over on the right-hand side of the country. Let's go ahead and get started here and clear off a couple of screens. I want that one, and I want that one. And we will begin by screen sharing. And guys, today I'm excited about this. I really am. I sure hope it goes well. It's that may sound like a funny thing to say. Again, this is, last time we met, I said I was going to go in a different direction, a direction that I had resisted going for my whole training career in the stock market, because I knew a lot of information. I didn't feel qualified to really go here. But I decided maybe I've learned enough. More importantly, I felt it was so important that I had to at least give it a try. That's the bottom line. I had to give it a try. So I did. And it seemed like it was well received. And I thought, we're just scratching the surface on this. I want to go a little deeper. So I'm going a little deeper. And that's where we're going to go today. Please tell me if you see the slides come up that it'll say Trading Coaches Playbook, and you've got a slide up there now. You can see the slide presentation. Perfect. Okay. We'll get our obligatories out of the way then. And that is, we have ourselves a disclaimer, and that tells you that I am not going to be talking about trading specific situations that you could possibly interpret as advice to trading. I'm definitely going to give you some advice today. I don't think that it's anything that'll get anybody in trouble. I don't have to be licensed to tell you the things that I believe, but we're not going to be talking about trading situations. So don't claim that I did, because I didn't, and I won't. Here's our calendar coming up. Lots of good things coming up. But Tony's got a presentation, Patterns in a Flash, coming up. Pay attention to that. There's a lot of good stuff. Rob does so phenomenal about getting good content in front of you guys. I'm a bit player compared to what Rob does, but I certainly am passionate about the things that I want to talk to you about today. All right. So last time we talked about Stinkin, Thinkin. That was a cute little title that I put up there, and we want to continue on that. But we're going to talk about the idea of what it actually takes to change, to make changes. Guys, if you were not interested in making changes in your life, I would be very surprised. I don't think that everybody here is 100% happy with the way that they trade, and therefore you're looking for folks and opportunities and information that will help you improve that. Okay. That's changing, making change. Guys, change inherently is different. It's hard. It's something that is baffling to people. It thinks, I got it. Well, wait a minute, I don't got it. And it can drive you crazy during your whole life if you really think about it very much. A lot of people just try not to think about it until it bothers them, and then they try to do something about it, get frustrated, and then quit thinking about it. But here's a couple of things that I want you to pay attention to. Beliefs. All action is driven by emotion, guys. All action, outward action, is driven by emotion. Emotion. The key word is motion. So action, that's motion. So emotion is something that drives motion. We use the word motivation. It has that word mo, which is movement, motion, movement. Something that motivates causes movement as well, but it's driven by emotions. Guys, your subconscious beliefs are amazing. They're amazingly powerful for good and bad. They are so powerful. It's like the fastest chef known in the universe. This chef can mix up a recipe, deliver it, bake it, serve it up at 280 miles an hour. That's approximately how fast we process information in our physical being. We flash stuff through our brain and trigger reflexes and responses at approximately 280 miles an hour. It's absolutely phenomenal. Here's a couple things that will help you to appreciate that a little bit. I mentioned last time, there's approximately 86 billion neurons. People have said for a long time there was 100 billion neurons. Some research by a lady that advanced the field here just in the last year or so has demonstrated that it's actually about 86 billion neurons, okay? Each one can make up to 15,000 connections, which means there is quintillions of potential connections inside of the human brain. Now, it's amazing that that starts at birth. And managing trillions of cells with quintillions amounts of information is done primarily at the subconscious level. Why? Because you can't consciously do that. So there's a whole part of your brain that's subconscious that manages those trillion cells to keep you alive. It's all about survival. It's built on and based on how do I survive. Babies are born with about 41% more neurons in the brain than adults. This is also new information. That 100 billion that was floated around for years and years assumed that it was ubiquitous, everybody. Doesn't matter how old you are, that's just what you got. Well, as things continue to change, as things evolve in terms of the ability to go down and drill down in more detail and get more complex and more observatory, we're finding things. And we found out it's more like about 86 billion, but babies have got 41% more. Wow, well then that's about the 100 billion. So what happens? Well, adults have a lot more skill than babies for sure, but they abandon resources essentially to specialize. In other words, there is a use it or lose it component in our brains. And it is now being discovered in research into brain disease, Alzheimer's, things where the brain fails. It was known as I have grown up in my life, the psychology that I've read about and studied told me that there's an aging process and your brain basically wears out. It gets less plastic and it can't do things, yada, yada. It turns out that's crap. That's not true at all. Your brain is plastic. It can grow and change and learn when you're old just as well as it can. Well, it sure doesn't act like it. That's right, because there are certain things that will cause disease and difficulty in the brain, but it's not because it can't do it. It can. If it's kept in the right environment, if it's exercised, if it's kept in shape, if it's fed, it works just fine infinitum, believe it or not. Now, it has a built-in aging process where it will age the body out, but the brain still works just fine. Just fine. And we literally abandon about 40% of what we were born with because we choose to specialize and not focus on it, not use it. It's crazy. So we deal with an interesting little question here. And most of us deal with this at a kind of a subconscious level all the time. I shouldn't say at a conscious level, because the subconscious seems to be sometimes at odds with what we are thinking consciously. Now, I'm taking a little different spin on this. I'm not going to go into where I came from, why am I here, and where am I going. I am going into the definition of who you believe you are. Not consciously, but subconsciously, because my friends, and this sometimes is a very bitter pill to swallow. You are, we are, I am a manifestation of what I believe, what you believe, what we believe. You're a manifestation for what you believe. Okay. Let me read. There's Robert says, people have been trying to change using their brain since the beginning, but true change comes from allowing new, something beyond the brain, thoughts, memory, anything that the brain's concocted through thought will come from the past. We must go beyond the brain. That's where the field of potential comes in. I don't disagree. I'm going to give you some hard specifics on how to grasp that in a simplistic but very powerful way, because it really is simple. It's so complex that we don't even understand it, but the principle is simple. What you can observe and actually do can appear simple. Now, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it has to be simple enough to grasp or you won't do anything about it. So I'm going to try to make it that simple. Okay? You believe that you can be, or you deserve to be, or you should be happy. If that's the case, then you'll be happy. If you believe that you can be happy, you deserve to be happy, and you should be happy, you'll be happy. Now, are there people who say those words and they're not happy? Yes, because they want that. They are saying that in their conscious mind. I deserve to be happy. I want to be happy. I can be happy. And they say that and they say that. But if in their subconscious, there's a program that says, I don't deserve to be happy. I'm not happy. I've never been happy. Then they won't be happy. It's like a bungee cord. Your conscious brain can stretch over here and say, this is what I am now. I'm da, 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 da. If it's in your subconscious brain, if there's a different story, guys, you lose. The conscious brain loses. Now, is there a way to actually make change? Yes, there is. But under normal circumstances, as Robert pointed out, when people try to make change deliberately, it doesn't last. If you don't change, if you can't change the subconscious programming, the conscious programming fails. But you can consciously program, this is how I'm going to be from now on. And the proof of the pudding, start with New Year's resolutions. Guys, New Year's resolutions for many people are extremely, extremely serious. I have got to do this. My doctor told me I had to do it. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. From now on, I'm going to, and they make the commitment, they start down the path and they fail. Ultimately, they fail. Why? Because they didn't change, and they can't change. At least they didn't do it the right way to change their subconscious, unconscious belief system. And where did that come from? Well, guys, believing is a choice. You will always have options to choose from what you believe, but the subconscious has selectively chosen things to believe, and it did it in a way that has to be undone in a similar way. You don't build it one way and undo it another. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of ideas about, oh, you can do this, you do this, you do this, and it produces results. And people think, hey, I'm fixed. And then gradually, or sometimes not so gradually, it undoes. And they find themselves just in deep trouble, because now they feel worse about it because they made such a big emotional commitment to, I was going to make this change, and it didn't work. What does that do? It reinforces the belief that's down in the subconscious. It says, see, I told you I was right. Only it doesn't even do it consciously. It just goes back to normal. You can stretch that bungee cord out. You can hang out there a long time, but eventually you fatigue and the bungee cord pulls it right back where it was. The subconscious is a database of beliefs, guys. It has collected them over a long period of time, and it believes that they are for your survival, for your benefit. There's no morality to it. There's no right or wrong. It's survive, which is right. You can look at it from the outside, either on yourself or other people, and go, why do you do that? Oh my gosh, nobody in their right mind would do that. True, in their right mind, they wouldn't, but they're not in the right mind. They're in their subconscious mind. That's what they happen to believe. Where'd it come from? Well, it came from experiences, okay? Things that they chose to believe, things that usually happen at a young age. Now, the whole point of today is to get to trading, and we will do that, but it will come at the end. Please stay tuned. You asked for this, at least some of you did. So hang in there, all right? Here we go. Guys, even if it's wrong, meaning we look at it from a conscious standpoint and we go, I don't like that. That's stinking thinking. I really don't like that, okay? I want to change that. Or why would anybody, why do you think, how could you possibly think that way? I mean, that's a third party observation, and it makes perfect sense. Why would anybody think that way? I don't know. I don't know, but they do. Why? Look, there's no moral judgment. It's just a perception of what's right for you. And it came from experiences that you had that you chose to believe because you were young and you needed to figure out a way to understand or cope with something that happened to you. And it created a belief, an explanation. And your subconscious said, okay, then that's what it's got to be. If the conscious says, I want to have a happy marriage, but the subconscious says, but my parents, my grandparents, my friends, they fought, they divorced, they were miserable, I grew up that way. Guess what? The conscious says, well, I don't want that. I hated that. I'm not going to do that. And the subconscious goes, yeah, well, sure, right. But that's what's normal. That's what I do. That's who I am. That's the way it'll always be. It always was that way. Okay, the subconscious has adopted a belief system attached to a lot of things, and it's going to be there. And it's going to be very, very difficult to change. Psychiatrists, guys, have believed for a long time, and I say until recently, this is funny because there are still a lot of psychiatrists that are invested in this idea that I'm going to talk about. They haven't let go of it. Even though the science has proved it wrong, they won't let go of it. They believe that after 8 to 10 years old, at the very latest 12, but in that range of 8 to 10 years, all the perceptions of what will guide you in your life have been set and you cannot change them. They're welded into your psyche. Okay. Now, I'm going to comment a little bit again on this, but I'll just throw this in right now. The reasons that they say it can't be done is because they can't do it. Psychiatrists have been trying with long sessions for years with people on couches only to get mediocre results. There's some success, and that's just what we do in our field, and it's very difficult, but I'm really good at it, and I'm as good as anybody. But you know, you can't expect miracles. This is very difficult dealing with your subconscious mind. That's true. However, Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon several decades ago, he posited a whole different idea. He was ridiculed. He was publicly ridiculed. Number one, you're not a psychologist. You're not a psychiatrist. You're a stupid plastic surgeon. What do you know about this? Read his book, Psychocybernetics and Psychocybernetics 2000, which was written by his institute later after he passed away. But the whole idea was you can change. And there's a fascinating way that it happens. He figured it out by observing what was happening to his patients as he performed plastic surgery on them. His research has slowly changed the entire field of study about behavioral science. Behavioral science has slowly adopted and with scientific methodologies have proven. They have proven that you can make changes. Now, Brenda says you can't do it without the power of God, living God. Brenda, while I totally endorse that, I would show you proof otherwise. In other words, an accident can cause a traumatic event that will change a person and will permanently make a change in that person that may be negative or positive. It can go either way. And changes can be made by outside circumstances. However, when a person wants to change their heart, when a person wants to change something about the way they believe, especially on a level of who I am, I totally endorse that you turn to God, you turn to a Heavenly Father, who is the master psychiatrist and knows how to reach in and just tweak and go, okay, you're fixed. And that happens. I honestly believe that happens. But it's not the only way it happens. Okay? It's not the only way it happens. It's difficult to do it otherwise, but you know what? That one actually works. I can tell you from my own personal experience, I totally know that that's true. Okay. Now, yeah, and Brenda's saying that makes sense. You know, if you change the way a person looks, you can change their perception about themselves. That's right. And that was his observation. And he did a lot of research, and it was not as a psychologist, it was as an observer. And he came up with this postulation that has turned out to be completely true, and it has completely changed the field. And he gets credit now posthumously after the fact, well after he died. While he was alive, he was ridiculed as crazy man because you don't spit in the wind, right? You don't challenge the system. All right. All right, so here we go. I went the wrong way. All right, keep going. Maxwell Maltz. The electron microscope has been able to document the process that he postulated. We can actually see it happening. I'm going to actually show that to you here in a little bit. But back to the point, guys, survival is an incredible, powerful motivator. I want to put this into kind of some perspective. You may not agree completely with this orientation of needs, the Maslow's list of needs, but in basic principle, just go with me here. Breathing, probably the highest need, not a want, a need. You will get breathing or you will die, and you will die trying to get breathing. Talk to anybody who's been suffocated or nearly suffocated. Okay, food and water. Oh, breathing and your circulatory system. You got to have blood and lymph moving throughout your body or you die rather quickly, actually. Those are survival mechanisms that are needs. They have to be there. Food, water has to be there or we die. The next on that level, sex, the drive to procreate. Why? Because if we don't, the civilization dies. Okay. Now, interesting sidebar here. Not to get off in the weeds, but I love this stuff. Love is perceived differently between the sexes. Men and women perceive love differently. This has been well documented. Men associate sex with love. Okay? Women tend not to. They associate affection as the highest need, the highest manifestation of love, attention, affection. Men, we hear a lot about women being vindictive if a man cheats on them. Okay, as it turns out. Okay, now don't argue with me because there's data to prove this. Your individual experience may think it's different. That's fine. But as it turns out, women are much more willing to forgive a sexual deviation by their spouse than men are. Why? Because of that association. Men perceive that they connect sex with love, and so a violation of that is almost impossible to deal with. On the other hand, women can separate out the sex from the affection. If the affection is still there and it's true, then there can be a more willingness to forgive. Okay, it's just interesting. We perceive it differently. So there's things that are universal: breathing, circulation, food, water, procreation, but it's interesting how that's perceived a little bit different. Sidebar, back to the program. Sometimes people will put shelter up there as a need, a has-to need, that, you know, at the top level. You guys, if you're living near the equator, shelter is, yeah, it's optional. Okay, I mean, it doesn't get really cold at night, and it rains. You know, you get under a tree. You don't have to have a fancy house. But if you're living north in North America, where you have horrible winters, you better have decent shelter, right? So that's kind of in the middle there. But then we start with a whole nother list of needs that are secondary: acceptance, purpose, et cetera, et cetera. You know, but these ones on top, these are motivators. Now, what's fascinating, I told you that, you know, little kids are born with 41% more brain cells, neurons, than adults. And it's true. And there is a process with kids to gradually shift over. And when I say shift over, I'm talking about transitioning from being totally helpless, except for a few rudimentary programs, until they become full-fledged independent adults. There's a fascinating process that goes on. We're going to talk about that, but I want to set it up with this again: emotion, motivation. Motion is action, guys. And this is another thing that I want to add in here, because it affects all of you, all of us. It even impacts and affects our trading. Okay, we're driven by emotions, which is manifest in your brain through chemical reactions, chemical dumps, if you will. The chemicals are referred to as hormones, peptides. All these things are connected with the system that we talked about, your endocrine system that we talked about last time. Dopamine, for example, is an incredibly powerful driver, a pursuit driver. It is involved in every aspect of your life. Okay. You identify something. When you find something that is positive, it's pleasurable, it fulfills something in your life. It's a connection where your subconscious goes, this is good. We like this. We need to get more. Whatever it is. Okay. That memory is stored, and a drive to pursue that, to get more of it, becomes written into your brain. Okay. Dopamine, when it floods the body, it floods it with anticipatory pleasure. It triggers the parts of your brain that are associated with pleasure, not breathing, not surviving. You don't have dopamine rush to go breathe. You get dopamine rushes to go eat that food that you like. Okay. Everything from the ubiquitous sex to, I just gotta turn my phone on and see how many likes I have. That's all driven by dopamine. It floods the body and it drives behavior. It drives action. It's an emotion. It is a chemical, a hormone that almost is impossible to ignore, literally, because it's associated with surviving and seeking things that are good for you, perceived good, good or bad, perceived good, and pleasurable. Sometimes, in fact, in many cases, the dopamine rush itself is more powerful than the actual payoff. So when you actually eat the food, when you actually get the reward you're pursuing, it's almost an anticlimactic thing. It's like, wow, this is great. This is what I was looking for. But if the pursuit had lasted for a half an hour and the reward lasts for 3 minutes, you kind of see it. It's interesting that the dopamine makes sure it happens. Whatever it is, it makes sure it happens. And guys, it can be absolutely overwhelming to where you literally don't have any conscious control of what you're pursuing. Now, I say this because this ties in with trading. And I'm going to make a connection real quick here. When you are being driven to a point where, let's say there's a mistake that you've made in trading more than once. Anybody raise your hand here? Is there anybody besides me that has a behavior, a mistake, something that is connected with your trading that you've had happen more than once? A behavior, something that you look back and say, oh, I screwed that up. Dang it, why did I do that? Why? And you get the red forehead effect from pounding yourself on the forehead going, why did I do that again? Anybody? Never. Some folks say never. All right, I get that. All right, so here's what's going on. Why did you do it again? Because it was a program. When you start to run a loop, guys, L-O-O-P, when you start to run a loop, that is a sequence that has been memorized, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end in your subconscious. It's a program. It's like hitting the button and watching a movie. There is a point. Now listen to me very, very carefully, because I want you to give yourself a break. I'm very serious about this, and it's something you need to figure out how to change. I'm going to give you some answers of how to do that. But here's the reality of it. You cannot tickle yourself. You can't scare yourself. And nobody has ever experienced the exact moment that they fell asleep. Think about that. Nobody has ever experienced the exact moment that you fell asleep. You were awake, then you wake up. Somewhere you fell asleep and you don't know exactly. Anybody who's fallen asleep driving, I'm wide awake. I'm looking, I'm blinking, I'm rubbing my eyes, but I'm awake. And all of a sudden I catch myself, I just woke up and I've moved over 3 feet and oh my gosh, I get back in my lane. Go, how'd that happen? See, if I would have known I was falling asleep, I wouldn't have done it. But I didn't know, and I fell asleep. Guys, when you start to run a loop in your brain, if it is a memorized loop, it's what I do when somebody cuts me off in traffic. It's what I do when somebody bumps into me and spills whatever I have in my hand. It's what I do when somebody says a certain word. It's what I do when a certain person walks in the room and gives me that look. It's that thing I do when that certain person walks in the room and gives me that certain look. You got it? There is a program that you run. There is a point at which you cannot stop that program from running. You can, and then it's over. And somewhere in between, you crossed over that line and you don't know where it is. That is why you have experiences where you smack yourself on the head, whether it's in trading or anywhere else, and you go, oh, I can't believe I did that again. What is wrong with me? What's wrong is you let yourself go far enough to where you no longer had control of that loop, because it is something that is part of your survival process. Yes, but it's wrong. It's destructive to me. Doesn't matter. In your subconscious, that's the way it's supposed to be. Well, how did it happen? Well, I mean, with a little work, maybe you can go back and find out how it was installed. What happened to create that belief that that's what we do when this happens? Cause and effect, trigger, reaction. That was built somewhere with an experience that had emotion connected to it. You accepted it, you experienced it, and you believed. Your subconscious, not conscious, but your subconscious accepted, oh, that's a reality for us. Okay, got it. Got it. And it's memorized. Now your conscious can have a change of heart. I don't like that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. Subconscious is not even listening. It doesn't do language. Listen to me, guys. Your here I am, you and I, we're talking about it. You're writing about it. We're discussing this on a superficial level. Your subconscious is not listening. Those core level beliefs aren't listening. They don't do language. They don't do verbal. It's done by feel. It's emotion. It was installed by emotion, perceived through your eyes and your ears and your skin and your taste buds, that fed into the subconscious part of your brain, not the conscious, the subconscious. Now, the conscious was aware of it, but the subconscious was interpreting it. And however it was interpreted became, if it's accepted, that's what we do. Yeah. But my conscious and somebody else's conscious and everybody else around me is looking at it going, that's stupid. You're right. It's stupid. Don't do it. Okay, I won't. Yes, you will. No, I'm not going to do that anymore. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. In the right circumstance, you push that button, you will run that loop. And then you'll go, why did I do that? Guys, your conscious does not control the subconscious very long. It's the bungee cord. It can control it right now. I'm going to, shake your fist. And the subconscious is going, la, 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 la. You can't see I don't know if you can see my picture, but I got my eyes closed, my hands are over my ears, and I'm making the noise in my mouth, la, 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 la. In other words, I'm not listening to you. It's not listening. It doesn't care. Okay? It doesn't care. It's going to simply run its programs. It's what it does. Guys, your subconscious is managing 1 trillion cells all day, all night, every second, every second. It's managing blood pressure. It's managing the water content. It's managing everything. And it adopts certain things that it believes are going to help keep you alive. Look, and this is important, from infancy, you have some built-in programs to survive, breathing and circulation. I'll make it real simple. Let's say that those are the only ones. They're not, but they're basics. Those are the things. As an adult, you have all of these other programs to run your life independently. But it's a transition. How do you get from the baby to the adult? Well, you have to adopt some beliefs to go beyond the basic programs that keep you alive: breathing, circulation. Eating. What do I eat? I like that. I don't like that. I'm not eating that. Hey, it's perfectly healthy. Other people eat it, not me. Why? Because there's a belief in there. Something happened, a taste, something got wrong. Maybe a dog barked when I was tasting that for the first time in my life. I don't know, but there is something that says, I don't like that. I'm not going to eat that. There's no reason. There's no rational reason. But in my head, there was a choice made. There was a decision made. I'm not eating that. Okay, fried grasshoppers. There you go, idea. Barry, 1 trillion cells in your brain, your whole body. It's more than that. In your brain, you've got approximately, as an adult, 86 billion neurons, Barry. Each one capable of making up to 15,000 connections, which is in the quintillion range of possibilities. In other words, we don't use that capacity. It doesn't take all of that to run our bodies. My gosh, it's a fraction of that, which is another interesting question that if you want to segue off, and I do this on my own. I think, okay, there must be a reason why God gave me a computer that can run the whole freaking planet, and all I need is a little bit of it to run me. even to manage this trillion cells, I'm not even making it breathe hard. Why? Why is it so over capacitized? And it is, by the way, it is. Barry, there's a serious school of thought that says that ability to make those 15,000 connections equals so many quintillion. There are a number of folks that said that's garbage because they're sub connections. In other words, there is a serious group of research who said it is not possible to measure the computing power of a human brain, which is even more powerful in a baby than you and I. Than the most developed human on the planet, the baby has more computing power. It just doesn't utilize it, can't utilize it. And we don't utilize what we have. We only utilize a fraction of it according to the latest research. Anyway, I digress. There's a slow transition as you adopting your own ability to survive. You go from being completely dependent, except for breathing and circulation. Somebody's got to feed you, et cetera, et cetera. You require these programs to meet your needs and to become independent. So you choose from the things that happen to you, from the things that are given to you, what to believe and what to not to believe, and you build your own world, and then you live by it. And again, until recently, it was believed that you can't change that. Once you're past about 8 or 10, maybe 12 at the most, you've developed all of those things which you will use to survive, and all the world is perceived through those perceptions. This is how I do this, and this, and this. And then everything you do in your life, you choose to have it reinforce this one or reinforce that one, and you ignore things that you could otherwise partake of because your belief that you've picked up won't allow you to do it. Your subconscious won't allow you to change. No, that's not how we do it. Now, can it change? The good news, it can. And reprogramming, guys, building new pathways is real. This neuroplasticity is opposite of what was thought even just a couple of decades ago. And it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. I want to share, I hope this works. There's a video that I want to share with you, and I just pieces of it. And I'm trying to see if I can expand it. I can't. So let me, you'll kind of have to lean forward because I don't know how to make this now once it's in the slide.
Everything you see.
I don't know how to make it bigger. So you'll have to kind of just listen careful. I'll kind of talk you through it. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I want you to see something because this is the coolest thing ever.
Here is real data. We're looking through a microscope at neural tissue going down through an area of the brain called the medial prefrontal cortex.
Now, can you hear any of this? Can you hear the audio when I turn this on? Okay, good. Okay, so he's saying through electron microscope, we're actually watching the interaction of nerves in your brain, talking to each other, communicating. They have literally put dye into the brain, into certain areas that are literally performing different functions. And you can watch, because of the dye, you can watch different sides interact with the other. The green is interacting with the pink. The pink is happening in the blue, and the bright yellow is where the synapses are firing. It's just the coolest thing in the world.
We can use these microscopic images to reconstruct the three-dimensional layout of the neurons and really see the intricate and intertwining patterns that they make. These connectivity patterns throughout the brain underlie all neural function and are.
Okay, he just said this interaction defines all neural function. In other words, all of what's going on in your brain, subconscious and conscious, you're watching how it actually happens. It's communication along literally millions of miles of fiber, so thin you can't see it except under a microscope. And that's what's happening in our brains. It's amazing.
Are responsible for everything from controlling your muscles when you tie your shoes to how you feel about your family. Understanding these patterns is a massive ongoing project for neuroscientists everywhere.
Now you can see the different colors. That's different parts communicating to different parts because they dyed different parts, and then they watch how different parts of the brain, then they watch how they communicate with each other.
Breakthroughs for everything from consciousness to depressive disorders and schizophrenia. In this example, we injected purple dye into a far distant brain region called the amygdala, which is largely where our emotions and...
Okay, I talked to you about this last time. The amygdala, the hypothalamus, is the chef. This is the kitchen. Okay, you get a stimulus that comes in through your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your skin, and it's interpreted. And there's a question. Okay, we just got stimulus. What are we supposed to do? If that stimulus was, I see through my eyes a bear charging me, the brain goes, I got this. I've lived long enough. We got a program for that. And at 280 miles an hour, it kicks in your program. Okay. If that stimulus is the smell of fresh homemade bread, and for me, that's going to kick in a certain program, a loop that's almost uncontrollable. As long as I can find some butter and honey, and that's what my dopamine is saying. Go follow that smell in your nose, find some honey, find some butter, and figure out a way to talk whoever's building that to let you have the end piece, because I like the cut on the end. I like the heel when it's, because it doesn't soak through, right? So you cut the heel off, you turn it up, and you can lather butter and honey on that, and you can eat that sucker and it doesn't drip through onto your hand. Okay, see, I'm running that loop. I'm salivating right now, Pavlov's dog. But this is the amygdala area that is driving emotion.
Feelings of fear are generated. The purple wires are axons or connections coming from the amygdala into this area. We've also used some recent advancements in genetic engineering to select only the neurons inside this region that connect to the amygdala and dye them green. By combining both the green and purple dyes, we're able to see the full circuit of connections, viewing both the neurons that connect to the amygdala.
All right, so I just wanted to kind of get a little, if you haven't seen that before, it is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And guys, what is going on in our brain is manifesting what we believe. So when I say stinkin' thinking, when we have problems, when we have things that we don't like, it's programs, it's beliefs. They can be changed. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Here's something I like. A friend of mine shared this with me years ago, and I love it. He said, nothing is good or bad except by comparison. I was happy with my car until I saw yours, right? Marketing has exploited this forever. Now, again, psychologists believes that you can't change people because they couldn't. They had a hard time changing them on their couches. And so they said, well, yeah, I guess you can't change it. You know, we tried and tried, but you can't. Well, it was true. Why? Because famous experts had said it was so, and it seemed true. But guys, marketers have been defying that forever, and Maxwell Maltz defied that. So it was true until it wasn't true. Okay? Gurus and marketers are people that have motivated people to act differently forever. Great speeches have started and ended wars. Diet programs, exercise programs make billions of dollars every year, not because they work, because they are so good at their marketing campaigns. They can motivate people to do something. And it's the bungee cord. The bungee, they'll take that bungee cord and stretch it way over here and say, you're right. Here's my money. I'm going to do this. And then it doesn't work. Marketing has been the forefront of behavior modification, teasing out different methods, not scientifically, but they figure out what works. If it works, they pursue it. And so they've been doing it unconsciously. They can create an action and then they try to keep it repeating. So they sell the virtue of some great cereal that they want you to buy, and then they stick enough sugar in it to make sure that it's addictive. These are behaviors that are observable, they're real, but the fact is, guys, there is choice. I love this. Marriage is hard, divorce is hard. Choose your hard. Obesity is hard, being fit is hard. Choose your hard. Being in debt is hard. Being financially disciplined is hard. Choose your hard. Communicating can be hard. It can be messy, but not communicating is also messy and hard. Choose your hard. Guys, your life will never be easy. It'll always have some hard choices. So you get to choose wisely. Now, the problem is a lot of the things that you have chosen weren't conscious decisions. Okay. So I want to apply this and track this into trading here. And I want to give you an exercise. I'm going to give you two things. One is an exercise, one is the trading application. So let's tie this in. I asked you if you'd ever made mistakes that go repeatedly. Okay. Guys, I like last time it was requested, I will send, if it's okay, and the permission will be granted, I will send you these slides, and it'll include that link if you want to watch it. That'll get you watching a whole bunch of cool stuff. But anyway, I'd ask you if you'd made mistakes before that were repeated, and you said yes. Okay. It's because there is a belief pattern that you're acting out. That's all. That's all. It's a belief pattern that you're acting out. You can make different habits. I mean, introduce a concept called stacking. It's called habit stacking. Okay. Habit stacking is where you take a new behavior that you want to have, a new habit, and instead of just saying, from now on, I'm going to do this. Again, your subconscious isn't paying attention, and you're not ready to do it right now. What you're saying, I'm going to do this. Every time this happens, the next time it'll be next Wednesday. So next Wednesday, when this happens, I'm going to do this. Well, guys, guess what? There's a lot of time between now and next Wednesday. Your emotions and habits, your emotions and behaviors are going to change a lot. You're going to do a lot of things. You're going to forget. You're going to forget. You're going to be in a different state of mind, running a whole different recipe of chemicals when that comes up. And you will do whatever you do. And then you'll reach back and kick yourself because I thought I said I wasn't going to do this anymore. You did say that in your conscious mind, in a whole different state of mind. The problem was when it happened, you were in a different state of mind and you weren't even thinking about that. How can you possibly say next Wednesday, I'll act differently than I think I will? Based on how I feel right now, next Wednesday, I'm going to feel different and act different. Baloney. No, you won't. You absolutely won't. Okay. So here's the reality. If you take a success, something that let's say there's something that you do correctly. Now, and this is so powerful, guys, you say, all right, my conscious mind is saying, when I do that, then I will add this behavior to it. Okay. That's very possible that you'll remember that. So for example, the guy who developed this habit stacking, very cool process. He said, he had success and he had some failures. He said, one of my failures, this is after he knew how to do this. He said, I'm going to add some exercise and I'm going to attach it to lunch. I have lunch every day. So when I have lunch, I'm going to do 10 push-ups or 20 or whatever he was going to do. Okay, great. Guess what? After a few days, he realized I've been missing. I'm inconsistent. I'm not doing it. Why? I know this process. I kind of invented this process. I discovered it. I popularized it. Cool. He said, why isn't it working? And he figured out it wasn't specific enough. Guys, sometimes lunch is later. Sometimes lunch is skipped. Sometimes something's happening right before lunch and it goes all the way through lunch. And so attaching it to lunch was too generic. So we changed. He said, when the clock hits 12 and I am released to go to lunch, I will do 10 push-ups. Guess what? Now it's institutionalized. He has a new behavior. And once he does it enough times, it becomes the new behavior. I told you last time, Maxwell Maltz, one of the things he observed was people riding horses. And he said, I watched the horse, and he said the person's sitting on it, and if the horse is walking around a pasture, it walks down the fence line. When it gets to the corner, it turns right, and it turns right, and it turns right, and it makes a box. And if nobody's on it, it walks the fence line. It gets down and it doesn't even consciously look at the fence. It just takes this many steps to the fence. It turns right. He said, so we put a rider on the horse and just didn't have them hold the reins at all. They just sat on the horse. And when it walked down and it got to the end, we had opened the gate at the end so it could turn left. Guess what it did? Walked down, turned right, then turned right, then turned right, and it made the loop around, around, around. And it just kept doing it. And so when they get to that point, the rider would then pick up the reins and stop the horse. And the horse would kind of come up abrupt. What's going on? We don't stop here. And they would try to turn left and the horse would hesitate and it would resist and it would, no, we turn right here. That's what we do. No, we're going to turn left. No, we're turning right. And it would fight it. And they would force the horse to go out the gate. Then they'd come back, they'd get on the horse another time, let some time by, everything goes by, everything resets itself. Their hands are by their sides, they're not holding the reins. They come down, the gates open, the horse turns right. They do it again. They stop the horse, turn left, it fights, and finally, and now, eventually, after a few repetitions, they come down and the horse stops. It's like, I don't know what to do. I always go right. You've been making me go left sometimes. Quite frankly, I'm confused. What am I supposed to do? You give it a little nudge. Okay, we're going left. Then eventually they'd go down and the horse would turn left all by itself. Guys, that's how you rewire a neural pathway. Now, the good news is that you can do neural pathways. You can make new ones, and it's not that hard to do that. What's hard is to give the old one up. And the only way you do it is you apply the resources differently. The connections that you saw in the bright pink and the bright green are the connections that are driving a behavior. You give a stimulus, it runs a loop. It doesn't make it up, not a new one, it runs an existing loop. If you interrupt that and you introduce a different pathway, now you've got to, at the stimulus, keep running the different pathway. And guess what happens? They can watch this on electron microscopes. I didn't have time to show you all this, but I've literally, you can see a synapse closing. In other words, it goes dark because the stimulus is now triggering a different synapse and a different behavior. And it literally abandons the resource. It goes back into the pool waiting to be used. But guess what? That old pathway is still there. It's just not being used anymore. It's easy to make a new pathway. It's hard to repeat it until that becomes the norm, but it can be done. But if you ever slip up, that old one lights up and goes, oh, this one? Yeah, we haven't used this for a long time. But yeah, I know how to do this. And that's why a person can be sober for years. And as long as they stay away from the alcohol, they're fine. And they get so upset one time, or somebody talks them into it, or somebody gets them so angry, they take a drink and they're off the path. They could have been dry, totally rehabilitated for years, and then suddenly they fall off the wagon. It's there, but you've got to stay. Now, success stacking. One way to do it, it's not the only way, find something that you already do repeatedly. You do this consistently, and then attach a new behavior to that trigger. Then it's easier to build that new behavior, to reinforce it, to repeat it over and over again. Okay? In trading, I have taught this in the past. Guys, when you start to get frustrated, when you start to feel yourself moving in a direction that you ought not to go, you have an opportunity. If you do not capitalize on it quickly, it'll be gone. You'll cross over that point and the loop is going and you can't stop it. But when you feel it, if you can consciously now, so this is where you could attach a statement of, when I start to feel like this, okay? When I start to feel like this, if I remember, I'm going to do something to change my state of mind. Guys, physically doing something will interrupt that loop. If it's not part of the loop, if whatever you do physically is not part of the loop, you're interrupting it. If you stand up, you are starting to affect the chemistry in your brain. You're introducing confusion, not confusion, but distraction in that loop. I teach students to look up and to the right. There's a part of your brain that you go to when you are looking for something that is important. In your brain, it's located in the upper right behind quadrant in the back of your head. And so if you look up and to the right and ask yourself a question, now wait, what am I supposed to do? It's like you're helping your runner or your assistant to find the right spot in the library. Where's that book at? I know it's up there. If you ask and you look up to the right and say that out loud, when you verbalize, guys, you interrupt the loop. Now, if your loop involves verbalization and you're verbalizing something, if you verbalize something different, you mess it up. Okay? These are things that you can do, that you can affect change on yourself, but you have to do them early. If you don't do it early, it won't work, because you'll cross over that point of no return and the loop will run. Physically, stand up, walk out of the room, go get a drink of water, verbally talk about what's going on, acknowledge it. Now, guys, I use this comes from a psychological and my Aikido training. You acknowledge what's going on out loud. You say, I'm starting to feel that. By talking about that consciously, you're interrupting the subconscious loop. You really are. You say, wow, okay, here it comes. Now, is there something I'm supposed to do? And now you're interrupting and you're saying, oh, that's right. I need to do this. Stand up, stand up. Okay. Do I feel any different? No, I'm still feeling kind of anxious. Okay. Walk around the room. Now come back and stand behind your chair on the right-hand side. Guess what? Now you're standing in the spot in the direction of where your brain would look if you were sitting down. And look at your computer screen. Look at that chart. Go over the rules of this trade. How am I supposed to do this again? Now, what am I supposed to do? Okay, so Rob taught me that, and you go down the checklist. Or Ryan taught me that, and you go down the checklist. Guys, you're putting yourself in a different state of mind. Okay? You already have a list of things that you know you should be doing. You've got the rules. You've got, I'm supposed to do this, so da. So what goes wrong? Think about what goes wrong. What does it feel like when it starts to go wrong? Is there anything you can identify? And then you take that and you attach that to, okay, when I start to feel that, I've got to break this state. If I wait very much longer, it will run its course. And guys, early on, you can do it. If the loop starts to run, there is no way for you. However, if you have a third party, now Tony Robbins is a great guy in some respects. Other respects, I have a real problem with him. I won't go into that. But he's really, really good at taking other people's information and turning it into something that he says is his. Okay, I'll leave it at that. But I'll give him a lot of credit for the things that he says that are right. Wherever he gets them, it's good stuff. He had a woman that was talking to him that was absolutely hysterical. She was talking about her son who disrespected her. He had made her life miserable. And how could my son do this? And she's crying uncontrollably. He's just sitting there listening. And he reaches over, he grabs a glass of water, and he's nodding his head, and he throws the water right in her face. She just erupts with, what? She's, her hair is wet, or she's wiping her dress down because it's wet. And she looks up and water's running down her face. She goes, why did you do that? And he said, you know what? He said, just a few seconds ago, I tried. I could not interrupt you. I was trying to talk. He had tried to talk to her. She just was uncontrolled. Oh, my son, she had tears running down. He said, I couldn't stop you. You wouldn't listen. And he said, now you're not even thinking about that. All you can think about is somebody threw some water in my face. Why'd you do that? He said, what happened? What happened to that uncontrollable? I couldn't even get through to you. Tears running down your face, mascara running down your face. I couldn't break through. And now suddenly you're not even thinking about it. You see, a third party can interrupt. And if they do, it can be effective. Now we have somebody in our mastermind group who confessed that, and I've had several students, that they actually have a partner, a spouse, somebody who can read them like a book. Okay. And they utilize that when they're not feeling quite up to snuff, or they're just, the trading is they're anxious. Their spouse can come in and go, why aren't you doing this? And the person will go, yeah, why aren't I doing that? You're right. Well, you told me to just, if you did this, I point this out on the chart. I don't know what it is, but you told me to look right here and point that out. And you go, yeah, that's all it took. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. It breaks the state, and now you're back. Okay. Talking out loud is magical. Scientists, researchers, the nerdy guys that sit in laboratories and do high-end calculations in physics and computer programming, it's very common for them to mutter. It's even got a terminology of muttering, okay? This muttering little scientists over there. Why? Because just verbalizing, even just that muttering, just the lips, as they verbalize what they're seeing, what they're trying to do, it makes the left and the right brain work together better. It interrupts a loop that would run off by itself in the right brain or in the subconscious brain. So muttering keeps the conscious and the subconscious working together. It's just a simple thing. Guys, when you're having a little difficulty, start talking out loud. Instead of staring at the dang screen, staring at the chart, watching something go bad, a trade go bad, start talking about it. Go over the rules out loud. I don't care if anybody's listening. Close the door. but it will change the way you feel and it will change the way you think. And Helen says, thank goodness it's only my dog listening. Exactly. Call the dog over, call the cat, make them sit in your lap and say, look at this chart. Let me explain how this works. You see how this is dropping down here? The rule is, and you start teaching the dog and suddenly you're totally clear, you're back, okay, I'm good. And you just say, dog, thanks, go, I'm good. But it's bringing in a third party. Now, the last comment on this, guys, is go easy. Go easy on yourself. These are things that you've been fighting. It manifests in your trading, but it's all through your life. And because you're trading, that's part of what you do, you're going to manifest it in trading. Not just trading, it's something you're already manifesting in other areas as well. It just shows up in your trading. Can you do anything about it? Yes. Is it easy? No, it's simple, but it's not easy because you're trying to go against something with a bungee cord. Doesn't work. You can, and I'm going to show you right now. Guys, do you mind if we take 5 more minutes? And because we lost 5 minutes at the beginning, I had this kind of timed out. Are we okay for 5 minutes? Because I want to show you what I think is the icing on the cake in terms of actually what you can do about this. Okay, all right, so here we go. So I'm going to show you an exercise that I came about almost accidentally, but it's incredibly powerful. So I'm going to change the sharing over to a whiteboard so that I can draw something for you. Hang on just a second. All right. You all see a whiteboard now? Yes, no? Yes? Okay, here we go. And I'll choose a nice blue color here. Guys, if this is the surface of the earth and you're flying in an airplane up here, I said last time, when you look down at this world from 50,000 feet or 35,000 feet, it looks different. Your problems look different. If you can step away from a situation, look back at it, you can see it differently. If you can interrupt the frame of mind, that soup of chemicals that is running that loop in your head, if you can interrupt that, a different perspective comes back. And that's a good thing. Okay, that's a good thing. Now keep that in mind because I want to visually help you create that kind of view in your head. I'm going to do a classic T-bar kind of a demonstration. I'm reaching way out in front of me. That's why it's not clear. If this was on my lap, it'd be different, but it's a screen out in front of me. So forgive the jitteriness or the artwork. I'm going to write that right there. It's I am, who I am. I'm going to put kind of a negative on the left side and a positive on the right side. And what I did, and this was just, it was a fantastic exercise. Put the year you were born, 19, whatever it is, right there. Now, it was easy to start with the negatives because that was the reason I was doing it, trying to understand some things in my life. But so let's go there. I looked on a timeline, and the first thing I remembered that had a negative impact on me that I thought might be a cause or connected with a behavior that I didn't like. I put the date down and then I wrote down the event, what it was right here. And then what came out of it? What was the belief that I got out of it? And I'll give you an example. This is personal, but when I was in 4th grade, I became aware of the fact that I brought home grades to my parents, and those grades were cheered. That's great. Oh my gosh, you did great. You're doing so great, son. This is great. Problem was they were basically the equivalent of B's. Okay. So I brought a report card with B's. There might have been one C, but it was basically all B's, maybe even a B+. And I got the biggest attaboy for that. Here was the problem. I'm a 10-year-old, okay? And at 10 years old, I'm becoming more self-aware. I knew that did not reflect, I was screwing off. I was screwing around. I didn't work that hard. And yet I was a people pleaser because I'm the oldest child. And I am loving the praise that I'm getting from my mom and dad. I'm loving it. I live for that. I worship them. And I'm the oldest child. I look up to them, identify to them. And they're praising me and telling me how good I am and how much potential I have. And I got this thing that has a bunch of B's on it. I'm going, now, if it would have tricked in my mind, if I push this to A's, I'll get even more praise. I don't remember the circumstances well enough to know why, but all I remember was that I came aware with a conflicted message. I was conflicted. I thought, wow, I didn't work that hard, but I still got a lot of praise. I don't want to admit that because I'll disappoint him, and I don't want to disappoint him. So it became a conflict in my head. And it's something that has manifested itself throughout the rest of my life. And I put some examples down where I had subpar behavior, but still was recognized as being good enough. And the way this was interpreted, I could identify when I looked down on this timeline, I went, oh my gosh, that happened here. And that reinforced this, that reinforced it, made it even stronger. This made it even bigger because I added this piece to this. And so something that I saw as a major flaw today that I'm still struggling with, by the way, not now, this helped me get past it, believe it or not, after decades and decades, I got past it. Why? Because I could look at this, I could see a timeline, I could see a connection between what, and suddenly I felt empathy towards me. I said, you poor little kid, you were 10 years old. That was confusing. That really sucked because you misinterpreted that. And nobody told you different because you were afraid to ask anybody, and and the way you internalize it, then this happened when you were 14, then this happened when you were 25. And it's just, oh my gosh, no wonder. And from 10,000 feet or 50,000 feet, I'm looking down and I'm going, oh, okay. Wow. I don't have to do that. That's not true. Obviously, I believed it. Look what I've done. Look what it cost. Okay, don't dwell on that because my brain is plastic. I have neuroplasticity. I can change this. And every time I start to feel this, I'm going to stop and post myself 50,000 feet up or 35,000 feet up. I'm going to look down at this picture again because see, I got this picture in my mind now. And when I start to run this loop, I look at this picture, I pull back up and I go, wow. Do you really want to go there? No, I don't. Okay, so let's go a different route. So the first thing you do is you name it, which means you acknowledge what's going on. You go, wow, I'm running that loop. I'm starting to run that loop. Okay, stop. Before we get too far where you can't control it, let's hang on a second here. And I pull back up and I look at that and I go, you know what? And so what this is, guys, is essentially, I've got the old loop. And when I get to the corner of the fence, I'm turning left instead of turning right. Okay. Now I've got to target this to trigger this to when I start to feel that feeling, I pull back and I look at this picture and I can turn left. Now what's going to happen is over time, we start to erase pieces of this because we're releasing the resource, we're interrupting the synapses, and they're going dark because we don't use them anymore. And we're reinforcing this one by doing it over and over and over and over again until that becomes normal. So I don't even have to think about this. This is just what I do. Now it's subconscious. This new subconscious has been built in. Okay. When you have trading scenarios, when you start to feel a certain thing, the new behavior is you stand up and you start talking about it. And as you do that, you break and interrupt that pathway, just like throwing cold water into that weeping, wailing poor lady, and you completely break that state. See, it's not that it was impossible to break that state. It's just she couldn't break that state. And she was resisting anybody else's effort to break that state until it was dramatic. When it was dramatic enough, she gave up on it quickly. went to something else, a higher priority. Somebody threw water in my face. What the heck? And that whole thing stopped. How fast? 280 miles an hour. That woman let go of that loop she was running, and it was gone. Instantly interrupted, instantly gone at 280 miles an hour because it was interrupted. You can interrupt those loops if you can identify what it is. Now, by the way, the rest of this exercise is fantastic. I started looking at the good things, the things that I liked. This happened at this age. I remember that. And I remember feeling whatever that feeling was. And this happened here. As a result, I like, there's my heart. I like doing this. I'm good at this. I love pursuing this. This is a passion. I really like that. And it helps other people and it makes me feel good. And you just start naming and you look at these things and you'll find connections between something that happened here. It'll connect to something over here and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. It's kind of a timeline functionality of looking at yourself from this perspective. 35,000 feet looking down. Look down over your whole life and keep this, because as you start thinking, what I'm finding out as I go through this after months is I'll think of something else and I'll go back and I'll write it in the chart. And when it starts to get messy, I'll just erase this and do the whole thing again, because it gives me this perspective. It gives me this 50,000 foot view. So how does this apply to trading? Guys, what you do in trading is a manifestation of this and this. If you have problems, it's coming from something over here. You're just acting it out. This has nothing to do with trading. Trading is a trigger. It triggers something and you run the loop. So how do you avoid the triggers? When you start to feel it, you've got a moment. This is not like stepping on a sharp tack. This is not seeing a snake drop out of a tree. These things tend to come on kind of slowly, slow enough to if you can say, when I start to feel that, I'm going to pull back up, I'm going to look at this event and I'll see it. I'm going to stand up, I'm going to start talking, I'm going to walk out of the room, I'm going to get a drink of water. I'm going to call my wife or my husband and I'm going to say, or whoever your partner is, get in here. I need your perspective. Now, my wife helps me out. You know what? She doesn't know anything about trading. She doesn't want to know. Okay, she's not dumb, she's just not interested, but she knows me. And I can call her and say, hey, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies here. And she'll say, okay, well, and now she goes down the list that I gave her. Did you do this? Did you do this? No, okay. And pretty soon I'm going, I'm good. She goes, okay. And she leaves because I'm back. I'm spun back up. I'm ready to go. But I needed that third party interrupt. All right, guys, I did my best. The last two sessions, that one and this one today. I want you to recognize that trading is not an easy thing. And it's not because trading is necessarily difficult. Shoot, a rule is a rule, a strategy is a strategy. Okay. And if it's good, but you have trouble enacting it, then there's something going on here on the left-hand side. You're manifesting that. How do you move stuff from the left side to the right side? It starts with perspective. And the comments about God, I love it. Okay, I love it because to me, that's where I go. Help me see me. Help me understand me, who I really am, who I'm really supposed to be, who I really can be. Let me let go, please. That's my prayer. Let me please let go of this stuff. Help me to see the negative on this, to see a better alternative, to see this perspective so that I can choose to believe this over here instead of this stuff over here. And we'll gradually start moving stuff across the plate. All right. There you go, guys. That's my best shot. I hope you got some value out of this. I really do. It means a lot to me. I don't begrudge anybody who struggles with trading, because if they are seriously trying, if they've studied, if they've paid money and they're putting the effort into it, I don't blame them at all. But I do blame something. And I've said in the past, if you've got some challenges like that, then I can't help you. But you need to get some help. Now I feel a little more qualified to offer some help, because there's things that I know work. These things do work. So God bless you all. Have yourself a wonderful time. I will send these slides out to you. It's recorded, and I don't know if that helps. I don't know what they're going to do, but But if there's some things you want to see on there, I will try to make those available to you. All right, take care. God bless. Have a great day. Take care. Barry, all right, see what we can do. Take care, guys.